Good morning, everyone, and welcome to RC Updates and Special Topic. It's great to have you. Happy Saturday. Is anyone as tired as I am? Yes. This session is interactive, and just a suggestion, it might be more fun if you sat in such a way that you can be interactive. So if people could congregate, if you all in the back few rows could come forward. I'm sorry to ask you to move, but it will help you with the exercise that we have going on later. So I'll give you a minute to move. Sorry to do this to you. I should have roped off those sections. But you want to have a neighbor is my point. Thank you for doing that. And while we're getting settled, if you go to the app and on the NACFC app and click on this session, to the right of my name, you'll see a handout. If you click on that handout, you'll use that handout throughout this whole session, the first hour this morning. That's also identical to the handout that's on the tables. So wanted you to know it's there. You will need it. It is your cheat sheet, especially when Jocelyn does her part today. So everyone just come on forward, find a spot, and we'll go ahead and get started. None of the presenters this morning have any relationships that they need to disclose related to this presentation. And these are our learning objectives, if you want to take a glance at them. We're really focusing this morning on programs, RC programs and opportunities. I've heard a couple of times in the last few years, oh, I didn't know that was for me. And so I want to dispel that myth. This is a myth-busting session. These programs were built for you. They are for you. So my hope is at the end of this first hour, you'll be more familiar with the programs that are available for you. So I will do an overview of the programs. Jocelyn Saldana will do a very fun exercise, and then Jill will interview 4 RCs that have taken part in these programs. And I think this will pull together a really good message of how these programs can help you, which is what it's all about. So right now we'll start with me and a quick overview. I want to thank Mary Elizabeth Jarris for making these slides. I made the slides initially, and they were like an 8-year-old had made them. They were like buckets, and the buckets poured out the programs. And she told me, Patty, I think I can do better. And so she put this together, and I really appreciate that. So we're going to start with our mentoring and coaching programs. Probably the program that most are familiar with is the RC mentoring program. This program takes both apprentices and mentors. The apprentices need to be at least 0.5 FTE in CF research. That's 50% of the time doing CF research. New to CF or new to their RC role, and a manager role or laboratory procedures is also fine, and regulatory option also. So Jim is here this morning. Wave, Jim. If you have any questions about this program, and Diane, they are the ones to talk to. So there's both the opportunity for apprentices and mentors in this program. The mentors have usually been RCs 3 years or more, and at least 1 year exclusively in cystic fibrosis. So now is a little bit of the interaction part. Everyone that's participated in the RC mentoring program in any capacity at some point in their time in the TDN, stand up. Wow. I would say this program really is the backbone of all the others, and I thank the facilitators who work so hard to make this work. Then there's the Loft RC program. Again, we have apprentices and mentors. Apprentices generally are RCs with 2 to 5 years of experience and work 0.8 FTE in CF research. Mentors are experienced TDN RCs, generally 10 years or more experience. Applications opened for this for cohort 4, and we've already selected the RCs. We had the kickoff meeting earlier this week, so it'll be 2 years before this opens again because it's every 2 years. But if you'll be eligible for this in 2 years, you might want to Keep it in the back of your mind. Everyone that's participated in the Loft RC program, apprentice or mentor, please stand. Yeah, look at you. Thank you. Then we'll go on to Equip CR coaching program. This is a quality improvement in clinical research. It's done through a structure, and you do it with your team. There are PI and RC cohorts that go through this program, and you're matched with mentors, both a PI and RC grouping. It's about an 8-month program. It includes a workshop and a site visit, and it's just all kinds of good fun. So everyone in the room that has participated in Equip, either as a team or a coach, if you would stand. Thank you. Thank you. So applications for Equip will open very soon in October. You'll learn about it in the TDN Digest. Very good. And if you're thinking that might be something you want to do, you just saw the people standing, that's who I'd ask, what was the experience like? Next, we have our educational opportunities. We partnered with ACRP, their e-learning platform, years ago. We provide access for over 200 training sessions, and this is available to any RC or Reg C at any care center. They don't even have to be a TDN. So that's available to you. Then there's the RC Reg C Open Forum presenter, and they help support, prep, present on our monthly forums. Heather Haythorne, sitting right here, leads the open forums. If that's something you're interested in, Heather's your person. And so wave, Heather, just in case there's anyone that doesn't know you. Thank you. NACFC session presenter or co-chair, they support, prep, and present at an NACFC session. There's also NACFC poster submitter. They support, prep, and submit a poster for NACFC. And then the TDN spring meeting session presenter or co-chair. I wanted to say about all three of these, for NACFC, you have to complete the survey that comes to you after this meeting, and that's where you volunteer. So that's good to know. Adrienne Dorico, who's sitting right here, right there, she's our RC representative for the NACFC Program Planning Committee. Immediately after this meeting, there'll be a survey to find out what you thought of things, what you would like next year, and an opportunity for you to volunteer. So that is how you get involved. Then there's the RC Boot Camp, attendee or assistant. Here you participate or assist with training on research, fundamentals for new RCs or investigators at the TDN spring meeting. Next, we have network service. There's a protocol review committee. They provide a review of TDN protocols. This is generally for RCs with 1 year experience or more. How many RCs in the room have served on the protocol review committee? Very good. Oh my gosh, a lot. Very good. So if that's something you think you might be interested in, talk to one of those RCs about what is that like. There's the sponsor TDN working group. Sometimes you're having issues with a sponsor as an RC at your site, and you notify someone at the coordinating center or myself about those issues. And when we hear the same concern multiple times, we usually schedule a meeting with the sponsor and invite the people that have the issues to that call. And that turns into a small sponsor-related working group as we work with our sponsors to sort out a problem. And we really have a lot more power when we unite than when we go to sponsors one at a time. So never hesitate to reach out. It could be that you're experiencing something that others are experiencing as well. There's the regional cooperative lead or participant. They help facilitate region's activities, or you can be an engaged participant. How many people in this room, let's just say, attend the regional cooperative calls at least 50% of the time? Raise them high. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's wonderful. Then we have RC Yammer participant. I don't know if you're familiar with RC Yammer, but it's our equivalent, the RC equivalent of a listserv. It's where we share ideas and ask questions. If you've never heard of RC Yammer, let's chat and get you connected so that you'll have that available to you. So you can have a presence in RCM, or you can be someone that just volunteers to get discussions going and to participate on discussions that are already taking place. Now we have leadership RC opportunities. There's the RC advisory group. This is 10 to 12 RCs from across the country. They come from different sites, different sizes, and it's a 3-year term, and they provide feedback to the coordinating center and the CFF as questions come up. I was at the foundation just a couple of months when Mike Boyle kept asking me for my opinion on this or that, and I thought, oh my gosh, we need more than my opinion. So that was the starting point of the RC advisory group, and they've been so helpful. Everyone that's been part of the RC advisory group at any point, could you raise your hand? It's a smaller group, but there they are. We will be opening applications for that. You'll read about it in the TDN Digest. Then we have the steering committee. Here you participate on a governing body for the TDN operations. You need to be a TDN RC for 3 years, or for a couple years, and it's a 3-year term, and these are usually selected. RC representative for the NACFC Program Planning Committee. They represent the RC discipline during NACFC planning. It's a big job. Is it a big job, Adrian? It's a big job. It's a 5-year term, because if you're going to ask someone to do a lot, you ask them to do it a lot for a long time. And Adrian, this is your 2nd year? Okay, so she has a couple more years to go, but there will be open applications in a few years. Adrian will mentor you your 1st year, then you'll serve for 3, and then your final year, you'll be mentoring the next person. So that is an option as well. On to the RC resource development, the tool resource development. Here we share tools you have developed and found helpful, and collaborate to develop and update resources. This is on CFCRNet. And then there's the video development work as well. You've seen the video training library, I hope, on CFCRNet. As you view those, you may identify gaps or have ideas. This might be really helpful. If that happens, you want to talk with Trenton Gordon at the Coordinating Center, and you might be our next star in a TDN video. And then there's funding opportunities. There's the Caregiver Assistance Award, which provides $2,500 for caregiver charges for TDN RCs with 6 months or more experience that work at 0.8 FTE in CF research. And if you're still eligible, the next year you get to apply again and again and again, as long as you're eligible. The loan assistance is $10,000 paid out over 3 years, and there's an option to reapply. If you apply and you receive this award, and you receive all 3 payments, and you still are eligible at the end of that experience, you can apply again. We start all over. This is for TDN RCs, again with 6 months or more experience and 0.8 FTE in CF research. Then there's the Career Development Award. This is up to $5,000 for career development opportunities. It's for RCs. It says 6 years, but it's 5 years. Experience, 0.8 FTE in CF research. How many people in the room have taken advantage of one of these 3 funding opportunities? If you'll raise your hand. Wonderful. These were built for you. If you're eligible, please apply. We want you to take advantage of these. Next, there's the ACRP certification, coverage of certification application and exam fee, RCs with 0.5 FTE in CF research, and they must meet the ACRP certification requirements. To sit for that exam, there's certain requirements that you have to meet. You need to go to the ACRP website to learn what those are. How many people in the room have taken advantage of ACRP certification? Wonderful. We have provided funding for 214 RCs to sit for the exam, and that, I'm so proud of that. So those are our programs, but as soon as I was done putting this together, I realized we didn't include PEP. There's so many things that didn't make the cut, but this was a nice overview. And before I hand it over to Jocelyn to do our exercise, I wonder if anyone has any questions. If you'll come to the microphone. I'm so sorry, especially first thing in the morning.
Has anyone done the career development, and what did they use it for?
Is anyone in the room? So I can tell you what people have used it for. They've used it for continuing education, for conference attendance, and for getting their certification as an interpreter so that they can consent patients. That certification, sometimes there's a course you need to take and an exam you need to take. So when you apply for this program, you just submit what it is you want to do and why it matters. It's actually a very simple process. And we left it pretty open. You can be creative. You just have to explain how it's going to help and why it matters. So no basket weaving, though that would be fun, and I will join you in that. Any other questions? Is that it? Okay. Any other questions about the programs? Then I'm going to invite my colleague Jocelyn up. And here we go. Jocelyn.
Good morning, everybody. If you haven't already and you're kind of sitting by yourself, I encourage you to find a partner for this activity as there will be some discussion involved. And yeah. So who here has played Kahoot before? Okay, oh, so not a lot of people. Okay, interesting. So as I'm logging in, again, if you don't have a partner, I encourage you to find a partner, but you will be needing your phones for this activity. Yes, only one partner needs the device. I also, if you want to be creative, start thinking of a team name. You will need a team name because this game does get competitive. Testing, 1, 2. Sorry. Thank you for being so patient while we're dealing with our technical difficulties. If everybody can get on their phone and go to www.kahoot, that is spelled KAHOOT.IT, on your phones, that'd be great. And then when everybody is ready, please just raise your hand so I can give you the game code so we can get started. So that is www.kahoot.it. Okay, perfect. So the game code that you'll need is 270284. Again, that is 270284. Okay, I'm starting to see people file in. Thank you so much. The code is 270284. So it'll be one person from your team will be using their phone. Again, the code is 270284. If your team has already joined, please raise your hand so I can get a gauge of who else we're waiting on. Again, the code is 270284. All right, last call. The code is 270284. All right, we will be starting. So let's get ready. So this is RC update scenarios, kind of going over what Patty had just presented a few minutes ago. RC updates, what would you do? It's okay. Yeah, thank you. RC updates, what would you do? So we're gonna test your knowledge with some scenario questions to see if you were paying attention. So how to play on your phone. You will have a moment to reread the question, or in this case, read the question. Some questions to note are one answer, have multiple answers, or are open-ended questions. I know that this is competitive, but remember to have fun. There's no repercussions if you get an answer wrong. It's just a learning opportunity. But I'd like to highlight that the faster you respond and the more correct your answer is, the more points you get for your team. So at the end, people will know who got first place, second place, and third place. So keep that in mind. Alrighty, so we're gonna start off with some light work, funding and financial support. So for this scenario, your colleague is a TDN RC, and you know they have young children and student loans that they are still paying. Are there programs you would suggest they consider applying for or participating in? And hint, hint, you have the answers on the sheet in front of you. Please refer to the sheet in front of you. So this question has multiple answers to it. Again, your colleague is a TDN RC with young children and student loans. There are multiple answers for this question. The correct answers were the LARC Award, known as the Loan Assistance for RCs and RegCs, and the Caregiver Support Award for RCs and RegCs. Awesome. All righty. So let's see that scoreboard. Who's in the lead? Who's Emery Rocks? Where are you? Emery Rocks? Okay, yes! Congratulations. Okay. Next question. This is for team opportunities. So this is more focused on your team. You are an RC at a TDN site and are interested in doing quality improvement work and or working with your research team on a project to improve a process or integrate a tool into your clinical research program. So things to note: quality improvement and working with your team. This question only has one correct answer, so be quick with your answer to get more points. Okay, yay! Mostly everybody got this right. Equip coaching program. So the scores have changed, and I would like to know who is Green Monster. Okay, Green Monster, let's go. Nice job. Okay, next question, next scenario. This is for our early RCs in their early RC career. So you are an RC at a TDN site where you have served for 2 years. No, 2 years. You are feeling comfortable in your role and want to begin growing professionally. What programs might you suggest that they apply for or participate in? So this question, again, has multiple answers. So remember, TDN RC for 2 years and wants to grow professionally. You have 20 seconds. Make sure your answers are logged in. Okay, we're just waiting for the timer to run out. Thank you for being patient. Okay, so all of the answers were correct. So for those RCs that are early on in your career, the world is your oyster, essentially. So please, please apply to our programs. Alrighty, so that was the end of our kind of quiz round. Now on to our open-ended questions. So for these, you will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to discuss as a team and to type in your answer. I'd like to note that you have to highlight a specific word in order to click submit. The highlighted word does not matter what it is. It could be the letter A or the word the. It's just so that you can submit. But if you'd like to highlight a specific response, say like mentoring program, please feel free to do so. Alrighty, so first open-ended question. You are an experienced RC for 8 years now and would like to continue to grow professionally. You want to participate at the national level, keyword national level, but have no idea where to start. What might be some good opportunities for you? So again, 1 minute and 30 seconds to talk and submit your answers. Remember that you have to highlight a word before you can click submit. If not, the program won't let you submit your answer. And it can be any word highlighted. You have 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So on your phones, you should be able to see the answers. Is that correct? Or awesome. Okay, so I will read some of the submitted answers. Were NACFC poster submission, contact the program committee chair, RC advisory group, steering committee, RC representative at NACFC, ACRP certification, applying for those funding assistant programs that we have, such as career development. So there's a lot of options. The world is your oyster, so please feel free to take the flyer that we have on your table and refer back to it after this session. Next question. This is more directed towards you and where you are at in your RC career. With your interests, talents, and available bandwidth, what programs might you consider applying to or participating in? So take some time to do some reflection, see where you're at in your career and what interests you have.
Let's see, let's go down.
Alrighty, so in the sake of time, we're gonna be moving on with our next portion, but I hope that you guys all enjoyed this interactive activity. I heard a lot of discussion. But yeah, I will now hand it off to Jill so that she can present our case studies and our interviews.
So thanks, Jocelyn. That was a lot of grace under fire, having to pinch it here with a different, different program. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much. So now we're going to spend, I'm just going to make sure everybody stops talking. Awesome. It's like, I guess I should have been a kindergarten teacher. Okay, so anyway, so now we're going to spend a few minutes talking to a few RCs here about some of the programs and experiences that they've had to provide a little bit more depth about what each of these programs or some of these programs are. But before we start, let's go ahead and meet our panel, and we're going to start right here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mayel Yepes. I'm from working like as a research coordinator for the last 2.5 years. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Hello, I'm Jim Cahill. I'm a research coordinator at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. I work out of the Detroit Medical Center, and I've been there since 2008.
Morning. My name is Brendan Klein. I'm a research coordinator and research manager at Oregon Health and Science University in Portland, Oregon, and been there just over 10 years.
Hi, I'm Brooke Noren. I'm the research manager at the University of Minnesota, and I've been there for 21 years.
Great. Yay! Yes, for those that missed it, Brooke was our Judy Williams Award winner this year, so we celebrated that last night. So.
Thank you.
So each of our panelists have created a little slide that kind of has some of the programs, not all, because it would go on, and we're going to bring them up as they talk, and I just have a few questions for each one of them. So I'm going to bring this up. So Mayel. It looks like you've really participated in a lot of our educational and mentoring offerings. And if you had to pick one or two of the programs that are listed on your slide here that have provided the most benefit to you, which would you provide and why?
Well, I wasn't aware of the CF program when I first became an RC coordinator here. That's the nut and bolt for me. It's like worked especially well because it's like it gave me a deeper opportunity to understand more about CF program. And able to consent with myself and able to consent my experience in professional areas to feel more engaged to all the process. And also create me more clear ideas, what can I bring to my program like a reasoning Baylor. Also for me, the second, my favorite program, to be honest, the RC mentoring program. Like I have the opportunity or the privilege to be like as an apprentice at the University of Alabama, as my mentor was Heather, where they had a wonderful experience because first I have my facilitators like Jim Cahill and also Diane Kitch. They match us like apprentice and mentor group. The first part of the process was like achieve some goals and experience between both of them. And then every month we meet each other in order to try to achieve this goal. And then I had the opportunity to go to their site, to visit them, and get experience, to know how they perform the different clinical trials, get experience to know all the team group, how they work different than my team. Bring this experience to my Baylor, and as a privilege to know more detail, what can I do? I highly recommend it, to be honest, to be part of this mentoring program because it's grow my confidence, to be honest, grow my personal ideas, be more competent in my role too.
Great, thank you. And when you decided to apply for that mentoring program, how did you know it was the right program for you at the right time?
First, I gained my experience, to be honest. It's like my person, I want to grow, like achieve new goals in my career. And I feel like I was here in the NACFC, and just the first time I saw Patty talking about this, all these programs, I said, okay, this is interesting. And then I apply, and then I say, oh, okay, let me do it. And then it was fascinating because I had all the experience, and also I get a lot of networking. I know a lot of people right now around all the country, support in different studies. I colleagues, for example, right now in Dallas, I colleagues in Miami, like right now it's my friends right now, I can say that one. Yes, I grow like a person in my career. It's wonderful support.
That's great. And as a newer RC, is there anything else you want to point out besides those two educational things that you took advantage of?
I would like to highly recommend them to engage, to apply to all the different programs, to be honest, because it's high impact in your career. You never imagine like, yes, take different feedback for different people the correct way. In providing more new ideas, like what can you do to be honest, because we have a passion for research. That's the idea. Everybody's here, everybody wants to perform, do the best in your career. But this like a friendly relationship, everybody here together, listen to us, all the wonderful pros and cons, try to support each other. It's like, I feel like we can do it better in the future.
Thanks, Mayo. All right, so we're gonna move on to Jim. And Jim, you've been an RC for many years now and have participated in a lot of the programs. And for you, which program do you think has ultimately created the most benefit for you?
I'd say the top three on the list have had the biggest impact on me. I'll talk about the first two. You heard about the RC mentoring program from Mael from an apprentice standpoint, but I haven't been involved in that program as an apprentice, but I have as a mentor and a facilitator. I was a mentor for a few years, and so I had the opportunity to mentor 3 apprentices during that time. And then after I did that, I was asked if I would co-facilitate the program, and I was trained by Kate Hilliard and Colleen Dunn, and I now co-facilitate the program with Diane Kitch, who's here in the room, from Hershey, Pennsylvania. And it's really benefited me being both a mentor and a facilitator. As a mentor, it's an opportunity to be paired up with an apprentice who's new to CF, maybe new to research coordinating, and it's an opportunity for us as more experienced coordinators to share the knowledge that we've gained over all the years that we've been in these roles. And it's really a two-way street, though, you'll find out. Anytime you're teaching, it's an opportunity to learn from the person that you're teaching as well. So you may find out that they have processes that might even be better than what you're doing. So being a mentor has been a huge benefit to me. And now I'm in the position to pair mentors with apprentices with Diane every year, and that's very fulfilling. And it really broadens my network. I have gotten to know so many people that I otherwise would not have gotten to know. And it's nice to hear the goals that people are establishing every year, And on Wednesday of this week, it was the wrap up for the year. And we got to hear about how everybody's site visits went. They got to spend 2 days. The apprentices got to spend 2 days at the mentor site. And we got to hear how they accomplished those goals and how they're going to work on them in the future.
Great. So how did you know that the time was right to be a mentor?
Well, for me, it was because Kate and Colleen approached me and asked me if I would consider being a mentor. The traditional way is to go through the application process, which opens every January or so. And I am going to steal shamelessly from Patty. How would you know when the applications open? Yes, very good. And then also as a facilitator, Kate and Colleen approached me to see if I would be a facilitator. And when asked or when an opportunity comes up to apply to something, that's when a difficult decision opportunity crosses your path. And I'm not somebody who really wants to get up and talk in front of a group of people, and so I kind of want to hold back. But sometimes it's just, you've got to reflect, and if you've got the bandwidth at the time, just say yes. When the application opens up for something that you might have interest in, consider taking that plunge and doing it.
Great, thanks. I'm going to reinforce too that the application process for the mentoring program is for both apprentices and mentors. So back in the old days, we sometimes voluntold people, but now we really look for volunteers through the application process. So thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to Brendan. Brendan, so you've taken on a management role within your CF research team, and from working with you, I've observed firsthand the partnership that you've developed with your PI. How has that played out in terms of the programs that you've been part of?
Yeah, thank you for the question. You know, I was thinking about this, and I kind of go back to when I was a newer RC, and I had participated in RC mentoring and had a fantastic experience. But for me, I think equip coaching was really kind of a game changer personally and for our center. And so I think I heard about equip. We didn't have TDN Digest back then, I don't think, but I think I heard about equip coaching at a spring meeting probably, and the applications were opening up. And I approached our center director, Dr. Mike Powers, and I said, hey, is this something we might be interested in? Because at the time, like, I was the second RC they hired, but we were looking to grow the team and add more studies and kind of just improve as a center. And so I was, you know, super fortunate that he was really encouraged me to apply, and I got to take a leadership role in writing the application, which was something new for me. And also then once we got accepted, got to take a leadership role kind of throughout the program, even though I was the more junior person on our team. And so then, you know, a few years later, when we got asked to be coaches in the program, Mike and I were just thrilled because, you know, we kind of saw it as an opportunity to give back. We had gotten so much from the program participating, but then also because, you know, as Jim alluded to, like, we learn so much, continue to learn every year, both from the teams that we coach, but also from the other coaches in the program, from TDN leadership folks who participate. And so, yeah, I just really can't say enough. I think, and then for our relationship between my center director and I, that's just, yeah, built upon that year after year. We built a lot of trust, and again, working together to kind of improve your processes and things kind of naturally brings people together, and you have to look at your strengths and weaknesses. And so I think it's just been fantastic.
So are there any other programs on that list that you want to call out, or whether they are on the list or not, that have been particularly beneficial to you?
Yeah, I mean, I really just want to shout out the financial assistance funding opportunities. My wife and I, we have 2 young kids, 5 and 3. We both work full time. We have student loans. And so those programs, you know, I did the loan assistance, and then I applied for the child care assistance annually until our kids get a little older and out of preschool. And those have been life-changing for us, really, so that I can see an opportunity to make this a career in CF research. And then as a research manager, it's also been really helpful because it helps us attract all these programs, not just the financial assistance, but helps us attract good candidates and helps us keep good people because they also see an opportunity to make this into a career.
That's great. I know, Jim, when we did the practice for this, a light bulb went on for you regarding the caregiver. You want to just share that with people?
Yeah, I have two young kids also, aged 10 and 7. And my thought was, well, the caregiver assistance program isn't going to work for me because they're now in school. We're not using daycare, or they're not in preschool that we have to pay for. But the option of using it for summer camps came up. So I talked to Brendan and Patty about that. So long as there's summer camps that would qualify, we'll be able to use that. So I'll be applying this next June, I think, is when the applications open up. So our kids will be able to experience summer camps that maybe we otherwise wouldn't have been able to afford or felt comfortable doing. Yep.
Great, thank you. And Brooke, you've been with us for over 21 years, and that's just phenomenal longevity and evidenced by all the contributions you've made to the program. But how have the RC programs that you've been part of fostered that kind of dedication?
Well, over the years, I participated in a variety of programs that the TDN had to offer. And over time, those programs that were available have changed as the clinical research landscape and the network has changed. But the beauty of the TDN is that they've saw those needs and adapted. So some of the programs we have now are not what we needed back then, and vice versa. So of the programs that I participated in, what was most important to me was the right program at the right time. I did not always say yes when approached with an opportunity, because maybe my family life was too busy at the time, or maybe just work was too much. And I was not always chosen every time I applied for a program. But it seems like in the end, it all works out like that. The programs that you do participate in help shape your journey as a research coordinator. And one of the first programs I participated in was a protocol review committee. And with that, I learned how a protocol comes to be, and also that the impact of having a voice in that coming to be of the protocol from the people who are actually trying to implement it is so important. And after being in that protocol review committee and having some experience as a RC, then I was asked to be a co-lead RC in a multi-center trial. And having that experience in the protocol review committee was really beneficial. So these programs kind of build on each other over time as well. And currently, I'm a mentor in the LOFT RC program, where I'm thrilled to be able to help grow the next generation of research coordinators, who I think are going to be the ones that take us to the cure. So stick with it, you guys. You're an amazing time in history. So each of these programs has helped me grow as a research coordinator and a collaborator and a leader, and it has helped me. It's helped strengthen my dedication to my own team and to the mission of the network. So thank you.
Thanks, Brooke. I think we have time for one more quick question, which is, how have the TDN programs built your career? And I know, Jim, you had some great things to say about that when we talked about this earlier.
Yeah, I started in 2008, so 16 years ago. And when I was hired by Wayne State University to be a research coordinator, I was assigned the title of research assistant, and that's still the title that I hold today. And there's no opportunity for that title to change. So you've probably heard over the years about the professional ladder and professional development that the TDN encourages institutions to have in order to help with retention and reduce the level of turnover for research coordinators. And so my participation at a national level here has not directly benefited me from a career standpoint, I would say. Certainly not from a title standpoint. So I'm not in it, I'm not doing it for that. But I would say that my TDN director, Dr. Mukadam, that I work with, and prior to that, Dr. Kistner, they very much appreciate the activities that I participate in at a national level. They recognize it. They're not blind to it at all. And the other thing that they like about it is that every year when they write the competitive renewal progress report, they can include in that we're not just doing things at our site level, but we are contributing at a national level. So it's very fulfilling to be able to participate. I've always felt like my employer is not strictly Wayne State University, but my employer is also the TDN. We receive grant money, which helps cover my salary. And so I want to be able to give back. Share generously and steal shamelessly, right?
Right. And I just want to thank everybody in the room because it's obvious, like we couldn't be or do what we do without the incredible participation of so many people in so many of these programs. It's phenomenal. And so thank you all very much. And I think we're going to turn it over to Adrian.
Okay, everyone. So just to build on what Jill and everyone on the panel was just talking about, I've participated as a mentor in the mentoring program several times, and I was an apprentice in the LOFT program, and I highly recommend all of those programs. I found them to be really beneficial personally, so I would really encourage you to apply when that opportunity comes up. So currently I'm serving as the RC rep for the NACFC Program Planning Committee, and as part of that role, I get to chair the next part of this session for the RC Special Topics. And this year, we wanted to talk about difficult conversations and how maybe you could be prepared by learning from others. So our first speaker will be Jordana Hoppy, and so she's an associate professor of pediatrics at the University of Colorado School of Medicine and Children's Hospital, Colorado. She's served as a site PI for multiple TDN and industry studies and is currently one of the national PIs for the VX-121 pediatric studies. And with her, I think, is also Dana Coyle, and she's been in her present position as a CF Clinical Research Coordinator for 7 years and at the hospital for 15. And prior to moving to Denver, she worked at Children's National Medical Center in Washington, D.C., and has been involved in CF care for over 30 years.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about our experiences today. So we are going to talk about some lessons learned from an FDA audit. So just out of curiosity, I know there were definitely a few sites that were also audited this summer. So has anyone else in the room had experiences with an FDA audit inspection? Okay, so it looks like a couple hands are up. And so I think Dana and I have worked together on multiple different industry studies as well as other TDN studies over the past few years. And I think we each took away a few different points from this experience that we're going to touch on. And so here are our disclosures, and then our objectives for today are to review some key takeaways, including documentation principles, patient safety, and then the roles and responsibilities of people for conducting research. And I think just what's really, from my perspective, absolutely critical, even before you get to the FDA audit, point, is to have that really good relationship between an RC and a PI, because when you can each trust each other, the whole process of a research visit goes so much more smoothly in general. You know that someone's there if things are not going well. You can count on your counterpart to know that things are taken care of. So I think even as we learned that we had an inspection coming, I think right off the bat, our team felt we're like, this will be okay. Like, we work together really well. We work really hard. We always put the patient first. We had success, during our monitoring visits from the company as well. And so we were like, we're feeling pretty good about this going into it. But I think it's that trust that I had in Dana as the RC that really was the cornerstone of that. So Dana is going to start us off just talking a little bit about documentation principles and maybe some tips that you could all take back to your sites.
Hi, I'm Dana. So yes, again, like working with Jordana, it was great because we knew going in we had no safety concerns. I've called her on Saturday mornings, Saturday nights if we get a bad lab. So we had everything well documented. And then you feel very confident, and then the FDA gets there and you're like, oh my. They go through, I will just say with a fine tooth comb, they went like page by page out of every binder. And one of the big takeaways, and again, I thought I was doing a great job documenting until they came in and looked at every page. So the big things that they did talk about was Alcoa. There were no findings, but like the key takeaways were, like I thought I knew all this, but like I won't go through each one, but definitely some of the things they really didn't like if you changed, for instance, ink colors. So if you're going to start with a black pen, keep a black pen. They really, really picked that apart. And then just like you're always taught to do, like if there's you can cross out an initial and date, but they really prefer an explanation with that. So those were the big things, but definitely be consistent with the ink colors. And if you cross out, make sure you write a little small explanation for that. And I would also suggest, with the industry trials that they give you the source documents, that you can modify those PDFs, and I would take off any extraneous dates and things like that. So those were definitely big, but just so that it's clear, anything that you change, like when the monitor comes in and asks you to verify something, write a little quick, it doesn't have to be big, but just a little quick note. We've had everything filed. If any communication between your PI, if you get labs back and they're not going to be able to sign right away, I've always emailed them to Jordana, and then then you can print that communication and put it in your binder. That's huge. And just so you know, yeah, that's really big. Just definitely file any communication that you have. And then the other thing that we did do is we read, if you do get notified of an audit, you can't really change anything, but you can definitely write notes to files. And then we had a little retraining class and filed that in our binder as well. The FDA recommended that. So that's kind of the basics of it. Do you guys have any questions on that? But yeah, lots of documentation. Don't change ink colors. Don't predate any of the pages, even if the patient is walking in the room or the subject number. It has to be totally in real time. Just error, or for me, one time for instance, I did a blood pressure and it was way off. So I just crossed it out and initialed and dated it, but then they suggested just repeat assessment. So just very short. It can be short, but definitely write something. So for the patient documentation, you get your labs and you have the PI sign them, but say you get a lab that needs repeated, or the blood was hemolyzed and you need to repeat it, I always will email, and then Dr. Hoppy will email back, and I put that communication in there. And when you do get the repeat labs, file them in, and definitely in order if you get it, so that you can clearly see when you get those reports from ICON. And then next page are the email communications, and then the follow-up labs. Or if you do get a lab value that's an alert, but you're not going to address it, it's not clinically significant, just have that communication where they clearly state that it's not clinically significant, because they did go through every lab report that we had. They were pretty good about staying just on the study, and that was one of the other points, is if they ask you a question, if you don't understand what they're asking you, you can say, I'm not sure, I will find out. You don't want to go down a rabbit hole, stick to the basic answer and don't explain any more than you have to, is the advice that we got, and that was pretty good advice.
I think just to add on that question a little bit too, is we had a separate area where we had our FDA inspectors stay. And the way that we had it set up is that they were escorted anywhere throughout the hospital as well. The risk is sort of if they just like mingle around and people are talking, well, I'm so glad they're not here to look at this study because, well, that's the one we'd have problems with.
Yeah.
That you want to like 1000% avoid. So they were in a room without any study materials. And then when they asked for things, they were brought to them. So it wasn't that they were necessarily given free rein to all of our study documentation as well.
And we made sure their room was on a different floor from where most of our documents were at.
Yeah, different floor,
Different
away
floor.
from all our RCs, providers, everybody.
I don't know if is it working? I can't tell if it's working.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we were notified on Friday evening. It was like 4:45 p.m. A nurse comes to my office door and says, the FDA says they're on the phone. Is that real? He's like, do I forward the call to you? And I was like, it's probably real. And yes. And so we were notified on Friday, yes, at like 4:45 p.m. that they would be there Thursday morning. And so I actually was scheduled for a vacation that following week. And so I asked, I tried to say, is there any way we can like push it by a couple days? And I was told, no, we will see you Thursday morning. You don't have to be there, just someone from your team does. So we immediately after, hearing that, notified our research team at Children's, notified the company as well, because they also have a support team that will help. So we had meetings that following Saturday morning with our industry partner about sort of tips and tricks for the inspection, to just give us some like basis background of like what to expect, because our team had not had an FDA inspection in over 20 years at our site. So there was no one currently on our team who had ever had personal experience with it. So we reached out to our research compliance team, so they were available to provide some support as well. And on the actual sort of days that the inspectors were there, we had our research manager as well as our regulatory specialist from our team in the room the entire time to be able to help facilitate conversations and get us things that we needed.
Just a follow-up, did you contact the sponsor to let them know that
Yes.
coming, or did the sponsor come?
We contacted the sponsor. So we had been a little bit pre-warned that perhaps we would be having an inspection just because the company had been notified that that was going to be occurring, and we were the highest enrolling site for it. So they thought that likely elevated us to being at higher risk. So they were going to actually try to come out in advance to just like talk to us about it. But because it was my vacation week, we had sort of said like, well, it's not going to work. And then there wouldn't have been time anyway, the way that it worked out with them coming. But yes, I would definitely lean on your sponsors as well, because they do have a lot of resources
They were
to
super
help.
helpful.
I mean, our monitor was literally available. Like, she had other sites she was supposed to be visiting. They pulled her from that. And so she could be available the entire time for our team if there were questions that came up from that side.
Yeah, they were very helpful.
So the sponsors are not supposed to directly interact with the inspectors during that process. But we are absolutely welcome to like contact them and get help. They just can't be like sort of there physically in the room during the inspection, but can be, outside or off-site and available.
3 full days. It wasn't actually.
Yeah.
It was still open.
Yeah, so the reason that the inspection occurred, it was for the new CFTR modulator that was just submitted to the FDA for approval. So as part of that process, they want to ensure data integrity, that they've, the data they've received from the sites about the study is accurate data. So that's the premise for it. So it was part of that process that will hopefully lead to approval. So that portion of the study was closed, but because of the rollover extension, it was, still open from that standpoint.
No. No.
They just looked at,
separated
they
it.
separated it. So they were looking just at the 24-week portion of the study that was being used for the approval. And so I think a lot of people know that they did actually submit, the approval for the 6 to 11 and the 12 and older at the same time. So when the inspector did call and talk to me on the phone, I asked which study they were coming for, and he was open about that they were just looking at the 6 to 11. There was the potential that could have expanded further, but we just had sort of all of our things ready for that particular study.
And yeah, we just kind of sat and took it, but I'd never heard of that either. And I didn't see, like, if, it's crazy when the patient gets there and you're doing all these procedures and, everything is super timed. It has to be per protocol, and you try to get as much done as you can beforehand. And yeah.
I think the pen that's in your hand when the event is occurring
is what you should use. You shouldn't worry. I make more mistakes now but we have 50 black pens everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was the issue that they said is that when the ink was in different colors, it was unclear to them if things had been filled in at other times and then you had gone,
Right.
And done things. So even though you're like dating and timing when
And putting it
medications
in
were
NDC.
dosed, that was a concern for them.
I would say,
Yeah.
it bothers me that you got that. But anyway, I would say if you wanted to commit fraud, you would have the same color pen.
It's worse. That was my thought. Yes. No mistakes. No mistakes on it. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. But there were no fine. Yeah. We wanted to. But you can't. And we just sat and took it. But you want us, because you put it into the EDC, which is real time too. So, but yeah, that didn't matter.
Hi, I just wanted to say well done, first off. That's amazing. But I also wanted clarification on the email situation that you're talking about, because I've heard.
Oh, for between the PI and the RC?
Yeah, I've heard that that's not it doesn't always, some people say that it's not Alcoa. So I guess I was wondering
So
if you said anything.
basically, since the lab reports do have to be signed, like they like them in the timely manner, or if there's an alert, they want that kind of addressed right away. And I feel like every weekend this happens. So I will email Dr. Hoppy and any email communications just so they could clearly see that you did and address it, because then you get an email from like the medical monitor as well if it's a panic value. And all of those were filed so that.
Because we had a sponsor audit, and the sponsor auditor told us that that's not proper PI oversight because she didn't feel that it was Alcoa.
Oh, no, they were fine with that. Yeah.
That's interesting
That
because the
is.
emails are dated and timed.
They're time stamped,
So,
yeah.
For us, we really felt that it demonstrated better PI oversight. So, for example, we got labs while we're here. I am not physically like signing and dating those labs because, we're not printing them here at the conference and bringing them on an airplane. But Dana was able to email me all of the lab documents. And so then I specified I have reviewed and I will sign them when I'm back in the office.
Like with the subject
And then
number.
that shows that I've already looked at those labs. And if there were issues, we would begin to address them, as opposed to, it potentially being like a week before those are actually signed and dated. I think there can then be question of were these reviewed in a timely manner?
Right, yeah, so I guess what we did was sometimes we weren't immediately able to collect a wet ink signature, and so we would correspond via email, and then there's just a question of, so yeah, but I mean, I'm glad that they accepted
They
this.
actually, they liked that idea and that they could kind of see it and just keep it in like chronological order so they can see it. Now, they did want to verify a lot of our, even though we printed like all the notes that we wrote, they did verify it in our Epic EMR system as well. So it's kind of, they were looking at both the binder and over the shoulder in our EMR.
Okay, nice. Well, thank you.
So my question is, aside from study-related materials that they asked to see, what other things did they ask for?
It was mostly, they did, they kind of broke it up. One day they did all the patient binders, or 2 days, and then they did the ISF. And they did ask for a lot of the documents in the ISF. So I guess one big takeaway is definitely like know your ISF binder very well, because the one thing the sponsor told us was like, don't make them wait for anything. So the easier you can find it, the better. So I would just keep it super organized. The one thing too, I think it may be on one of these slides, are like, for example, the study communication newsletters that you get every week. Keep those completely separate. And then any like little news blast that say, like new parameters for ECG or some kind of icon alert. They want those separately, and they also want to know, they'll ask how you disseminate to the rest of your staff. So that's kind of like, they actually like those completely separate.
So they're not asking for your site guidelines for
Well, yes, so they did ask for that.
SOPs on
Yes,
how to
yes.
consent and so forth.
Yes, consent notes, consent process notes, and then various SOPs.
Checklists.
Yes.
My next question would be, and this is probably something I should already know, but I want to make sure. When you print out a subject medical records and you give them to your PI, so what we do is we have certified copies of our subjects' medical records. Before you give them to your PI, do you redact the subject PHI and then, put the subject number and have your PI sign it? Or do you have them sign it with the PHI on it and then afterwards redact the information?
So if there were things that needed to be sent to the sponsor
Then you
from the
redact
medical
it.
records, like repeat labs that were maybe done at a local site, I usually print those with the PHI on it, and then Dana will redact it before sending it to the sponsor.
But right.
I think that's just, for me personally, I maybe don't always know my subject's like study number off the top of my head, but I definitely know their name. And so that for me is just helpful, that I am 100% sure which patient's information I'm signing. Because I feel like even with when I get sort of labs and others, things that I need to sign as part of the study, Dana puts them for me all in separate folders with the patient's initials on it. So it's very clear to me, even when it just has like the subject ID on the actual papers, exactly who I'm thinking about in that moment.
Yeah, you can just redact if you're sending it to the sponsor. Otherwise, we keep all the PHI on there. But definitely, if you send it in, you have to redact and put the subject number.
Thank you.
Our protection, or was it for the sponsors' protection?
They actually looked at those, because then they,
That's my question.
yep,
Was
they
did
did.
ask for the-
Everything in the ISF, like each section in there, has to have things. It has to have like all the appropriate paperwork in there. And then also what they did, like, you can't help some of the protocol deviations. Like if a patient missed 2 doses during the 3 months, and they just want to make sure that you're addressing those.
Yeah, so they did ask.
They did.
They looked through every monitoring letter. Yes, and then asked questions about how things were addressed.
Yeah.
That letter yet? Use your reach out.
Yeah, I think they don't have to do the letter saying they're coming anymore, the follow-up. So, but they looked at all of that.
Yeah, I think that organization though is critical. We were lucky that we had the same RC throughout the duration of the study, but that's not always the case. And so really making sure that things are like filed exactly when they're happening.
Yeah.
You don't want that like pile of papers at the desk like waiting to go into the binders. Just get it done immediately, because if it's there, done, timely, and in the same way every time, you're less likely to miss things.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't use the slides, but that's okay. Okay, so next up we have Megan Devereaux, and she's a certified clinical research coordinator from Madison, Wisconsin. She's worked as a CF coordinator in both adult and pediatric studies for 3 years.
Good morning, everyone. Like Adrienne said, my name is Megan Devereaux, and I'm an RC from Madison, Wisconsin, and I have no disclosures to share with you today. So, like many of you probably are familiar with, we do pregnancy testing for interventional trials around here, and our site was preparing to start a pediatric study. And for this study, the effects of this drug were not tested on conception, pregnancy, and lactation. So pregnancy is exclusionary. So we would be doing serum and urine testing throughout the study to confirm no one's taking drug while pregnant. And if a participant were to become pregnant, they would be removed from the study and followed for 1 year. So pretty clear, no one's getting pregnant during this study. And so at our site, we approached an 11-year-old female patient. And right away, the patient's mother was very worried, had a lot of questions, very concerned about her daughter's overall health, which is totally understandable. And she had been doing very well on commercial Trikafta, and the patient's mother obviously just wanted the best for her. So we had very lengthy discussions, pre-consent, about what this study entailed. But at the time, pregnancy testing was not a concern. So we decided to move forward, and at the time of our pre-consent conversations, the patient wasn't menstruating, and they arrived to the first visit, and mom shares with me that the patient has begun menstruating. So as you know, we need to talk about a method of contraception. So at the time of consent, there's no concerns about that or anything. We choose the contraception method, abstinence is chosen. Mom and I are pretty much having this conversation. The patient seems unaware or aloof to the conversation, doesn't really want to discuss this with anyone, which is understandable. So per protocol, I continue confirming her method of contraception at every in-person visit as normal. So, but pretty early on, mom asked that I only talk about this when the patient is not in the room. And that kind of made me uncomfortable, right? I didn't want to be doing anything behind the patient's back, but I also wanted to keep mom comfortable and respect her wishes. So I started doing that when the patient would step out, which was fine. We kind of moved on that way for a while, worked okay. And of course, throughout the study, we're doing serum pregnancy tests. So she's having her blood drawn, testing is happening, everything's going fine. And the week 20 visit was coming up, and that's where we did our first urine pregnancy test. And at home. And so like my other patients, I was ready to give her a test to take home, and just thought that that's what we would do. We'd been doing this throughout the whole study. And mom didn't take it. I gave it to her, explained what it was for. She's like, I'm not gonna use this. I was very uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do. The patient's there. And so I had to pivot. Like I said, serum pregnancy tests have been happening, so I'm confused at this point. I'm surprised. And I knew already that I wasn't supposed to be talking about contraception, so I didn't want to say much about this topic. We'd had a great visit. They're ready to leave, and so they left, and I decided I was going to talk with my PI before deciding what to do. So my PI, Dr. Hara Levy, was very helpful. She helped me keep things in perspective and had a lot of empathy for the patient and the patient's mother. She herself is a mother, and she's worked with lots of patients over the years. And she helped me realize, like, maybe the mom just felt that we were questioning her and her daughter, and maybe they were frustrated that confirming their method of contraception wasn't enough. And so she really helped me think about it from her perspective. And she encouraged me to reach out to the study monitor to see if any exceptions could be made. Obviously, we understand the importance, and it's a safety thing that we have to do in this study, but worth advocating for our patient. And so the phone visit comes around. As I'm sure you guessed, we did not get an exception for the pregnancy test. We tried, and they explained that we would take a protocol deviation, and the patient would be back in 4 weeks to have a serum pregnancy test, so it would happen again soon. And this was the first and last urine pregnancy test for the study, but the optional rollover study was coming up, and so we had to discuss this at length. There were around 15 urine pregnancy tests in the rollover study, and that was way more protocol deviations than I was willing to take on, so didn't want to be in trouble. So again, we're having many lengthy phone conversations about what this study would entail, and I am very clear that it would entail a home pregnancy test in many of them. And then it just shared, like, this is totally optional. If you're not ready to have this conversation, if you're not ready to do this, it's okay. Like, you don't have to be in the study. You can go back to, your commercial drug, what have you, and just continue to explain the scientific importance behind why we do this, and kind of was firm about that. And she's of childbearing potential, so we have to. Okay, so I felt like I got to a really good point with Mom. We're understanding each other. They do the rollover. Everything's going great. We have the first urine pregnancy test. She takes the test home, and I call her, and she's like, well, the patient is menstruating, so we're not going to take the test. And I'm like, well, I understand it feels silly. I understand that she's probably not pregnant. You just have to do the urine test, but they didn't. Another protocol deviation. So at this point, I'm kind of stressed because obviously they just started this rollover study for weeks. We're not doing the tests. I've explained, at length. And so the next in-person visit comes around. We're going to do a serum pregnancy test at this point. Patient's mother, throughout the whole thing, has seemed very well-educated, analytical. She's always got a notebook. She's like taking notes, very interested in the details. And I just kept thinking, like, I can explain this away. I can explain the importance. She'll come around. But yeah, she's clearly considering the situation a lot too. And kind of out of the blue, she just asked me when the patient's not around if we could instead call it a hormone test, which, at first I was like, I don't know. Technically, we're measuring a hormone, right? HCG is a hormone. So I thought, okay, sure. At this point, the patient is 12, and I've assented her many times. We've gone through the consent process. Like, I'm pretty sure she knows what's going on. But I'm willing to make everyone comfortable, I suppose. So sure, that we can do that. So Mom accepted the pregnancy test I offered at this point, and I wasn't feeling very confident though. So I asked my PI to join me for the next phone visit, kind of assuming it might not work out still. So my PI, Hera Levy, joined me for the next phone call, and by the time I called her, she had already done the test. So, woo! Yeah. I was shocked. I could not believe it. I was so relieved, and I guess I didn't know at what point we'd have this like breakthrough. And since that point, we have had success doing these tests. I've been calling them hormone tests. I do kind of like, we don't need to discuss it very much in front of the patient. But yeah, we've had success since then. So what did I learn? I don't consider this to be like a roaring success. I think we struggled, and there's possibility that we could, this could happen again. But I think the biggest thing that I learned was sometimes using logic and scientific explanation to relate to people isn't what they need. Like, just because that's how I would understand something doesn't mean that's the most effective method. And then maybe I just misunderstood Mom. Like, maybe it really was just terminology that was bothering Mom. I still don't really know, but something I'm thinking about now. And then another thing I learned from my PI is like having empathy. They really are navigating a lot with these studies. I mean, they're navigating CF, they're navigating this study. She's 12, she's in middle school, like they're going through a lot. And so whatever I can do to help ease this, I'm willing to do. And then lastly, having support. My PI was very supportive, willing to join me for phone calls when I felt like I needed it, and brought this angle that I can really appreciate. So if anyone has been through something similar or has any feedback or questions for me, I'm happy to talk through that with you. So thank you.
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the child appropriately assented to the study given what happened with the pregnancy testing?
That's a great question. And that was definitely something that I was uncomfortable with, right? Because as I'm sure you all, if you're in the study, we've had multiple consent and assent forms come out. So I'm like constantly going through these forms. And after the first time that I wasn't supposed to like mention contraception, I'm very uncomfortable talking about this with the patient. But yeah, it's my job. I have to go through each page. I mean, there's pictures, there's all kinds of things. Like that's where I'm torn, because I feel like it's obvious the patient knows what we're testing for, right? I've gone through it with her. So that put me in a very uncomfortable position as well. But I feel like I did try to cover it, you know, regardless. So, yeah.
So I'm probably in the same study. I also had an 11-year-old. And I think what worked for me was having that conversation with the mom before consent, or even assent, because when they're signing that, clearly talks about pregnancy and stuff. And just kind of getting on the same page with how the parent wants to, you know, communicate about that. But my patient was 11, not menstruating, but, you know, after 9, they're childbearing, which I think is a little bit crazy, but we didn't have any issues. But yeah, it's a touchy subject, I think, because you don't know where that family is in those kind of conversations.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and probably something that I'll take in the future, just kind of regardless, discussing that ahead of time to have a plan and so there's no surprises. That's a great point, yeah.
So how did you know that they were actually taking the pregnancy test? Like, I think after going through this whole process with them, I still would feel a little uneasy and like, is this a safety concern? Do we need to do something else? So was there something that the family did that made you know that this was happening and that you were that like you had built that trust back with them?
Yeah, another great question. We certainly don't know, right? We because when I have the phone conversations, usually the patient's at school, so it's just mom and I talking, and it's very brief. She just tells me the results. So yeah, you're right. Like, I don't know. I guess we do still rely heavily on the serum pregnancy tests when they come to site, and. Yeah, we're kind of trusting, and it hasn't come up with our monitor. You know, she's aware of the protocol deviation. She's aware of our conversations. They haven't requested we do anything additional, but yeah, great point. We don't know. They might not be doing them.
You could always have them send a picture if that was really a concern.
That's a great idea too.
We actually do that at our site. We ask that they send the packaging with the lot and expiration number on it, and also the pictures showing the negative test.
Wow, yeah, we haven't been doing that. Well, great ideas. Yeah. Great ideas. Yeah, thank you guys so much. It's very helpful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so our last presenter is Margaret Powell, and she's been an RC at UNC Chapel Hill since 2017 in various roles from data coordinator to lead coordinator, and eventually CF research group manager. And now she's in a part-time role while attending graduate school, primarily working on regulatory submissions and data oversight. So welcome, Margaret.
Thank you all. I promise my topic it's going to be one that's near and dear to my heart, but it is one that is heavy. So I will have a disclosure, let's see, content warnings. So talking about suicide, depression, and pregnancy loss. So if any of these things are triggering for you or have any emotions, strong emotions, please feel free to leave at any time. I will not be offended. I also promise that I will end on a happy note. We will end on a positive note, so we will not be ending with this heavy topic. So really, what I wanted to talk about were the tough talks, so these difficult conversations and mental health disclosures that I've had with several of my patients at this point. As someone who had absolutely no mental health care training whatsoever until these situations had happened and I sought out experiences to learn. So I have no disclosures. So the first case, this is an adult patient. It was the first research study that they had participated in. It was an observational study. This was later in the trial. I knew them pretty well at this point. I felt really comfortable talking with them. I felt like I knew their personality. They were typically very happy, very upbeat, excited to be, at the research visits. At this specific visit, this patient walked in, was a little disheveled. Their hair wasn't fixed the way it normally was. Something kind of seemed off. I didn't think too much of it though. It was a 7:30 a.m. visit, but I kind of took note of that. And then as they were completing the CFQR and other mental health questionnaires, they said something to the effect of, "Do you actually read this? What if I said something off the wall?" They were kind of hinting that they may be answering or responding in a different way from usual. Again, I was brand new coordinator. I really had no idea what to say other than if you don't feel comfortable responding to something, you don't have to. This is totally optional, up to you if you'd like to continue. I said I wouldn't repeat their answers to anybody. If they felt uncomfortable, just stop. We can stop the visit. It made me really uncomfortable personally because I didn't know how to handle it. And again, it was an observational visit. There was no PI at this visit. The PIs were available, but our location, they were actually off-site. I wasn't expecting it, and I'm gonna be honest, I responded in probably the worst way possible. I responded in a joking way, just back with them. As they were joking, they made the comment. They were a burden by being upset and by having all these deep feelings, and they joked about ending it. In retrospect, absolutely should have been serious. I should have been serious. So what did I do in the room? I made jokes, I changed the subject, I kept us on track with the research visit. I did ask them if they wanted to continue. I repeatedly asked them for their voluntary, participation. But we continued with the visit procedures. I did mention that we had 2 amazing CF social workers and a psychiatrist that I could connect them with. They said they didn't care, they didn't want to speak to them, and that they would be okay, they didn't need to talk to them. But after the visit, I called the social worker, who was one of my friends. I was panicked. I had no idea whether I had acted, appropriately. I didn't know, should I have let them leave? Should I have talked to somebody? I felt horrible. At subsequent visits, I did follow up on their mental health concerns. I encouraged them to bring it up with that clinical staff. I did look up state disclosure rules and regulations because I was not a mandated reporter in my position, and I knew nothing. Who should I tell? Should I tell? Do I tell somebody? Do I talk to somebody? I also did not disclose the patient's name to the social worker. At her advice, she recommended I not say anything. I told her the situation first without the patient's name. I asked her if she would like to know the patient's name, and she said no, based on what exactly the patient had said at this time. What I wish I had done, again, I really wish I'd become more serious. I wish I had hard stop. We're gonna have a conversation about this mental health-wise. Are you okay? Do you have supports? Do you have people you can talk to about this? And really encourage them to reach out to the clinical social work team. I also wish that I reached out to my coworkers. Again, I was a brand new RC, and all I had in my mind was HIPAA and confidentiality and not disclosing this information to my coworkers who might know them, including the clinical team. I didn't know what was appropriate. So I didn't disclose that. Part of the problem that I think with this is that I also don't think that I emphasize enough as a coordinator that I have no clinical training. I am purely, I had a bachelor's at the time in psychology, but I had no idea what to do or how to handle these situations. It is a balancing act though, because I think that we have a unique position where patients see us in a light that they can open up to us and they build a rapport with us. They're with us for 12 hours sometimes when we do an MCC study. So they spend a lot of time with us when they may not spend it with the clinical team. going to quickly go over the second case, and then I'll share some resources. So the second case was about pregnancy loss. Again, this was an adult participant. This was their first study. They were in an observational study. This did have mucociliary clearance scans. For those of you who are not familiar with that, it does include radio-labeled particles, so it is radiation. So we do have to have pregnancy tests and talk about contraceptive use. Immediately, and we'd already consented, this was their visit. They were coming in, they were supposed to have a pregnancy test. I had previously talked about the pregnancy test and use of contraception throughout the study. The participant immediately began to cry when I asked her for a pregnancy test. Again, I panicked, absolutely panicked. At this time, this was the second time something had happened. I didn't know this patient really at all. I had met them at the consent, I talked to them a couple of times, but that was it. Eventually we did become close and developed a relationship, but this was super early in the visit. I pretty much just sat there. I offered support, I listened. I advised her to reach out to social workers. I confirmed that she wanted to be in the study. After the visit, I reached out to her and I mentioned the CF support groups, so CF Peer Connect. I reached out to the social worker and asked how I should have handled it and how I can handle it in the future. So kind of sensitivity type trainings and sensitivity information, how should I do this? I continue to follow up on her concerns, bringing them up with the clinical staff and bringing them up with her. But it was a really uncomfortable position that I was in, and I felt like I was unprepared for having these tough conversations with them. We did work out a way for the patient that was less stressful for her, so I asked her, how would you like to have this conversation? Would you want it to be the first thing that we talked about, or would you rather it be a later? Would you rather do it at the very beginning? I can give you 10 minutes then to yourself so you can move past it, or if you'd like, I can just rush you through the event so you don't think about it, whatever you'd like. And it depended on the day. Some days she wanted time, some days she didn't. Some days she walked out of the bathroom and was like, let's go. Let's get ready with the study procedures. I have some positive news. Post-Trikafta, she has had a baby and is now pregnant with her second, so. The third one's about marriage conflict. I'm not going to go into this for the interest of time, but I also had another participant speak about having marriage conflict. The visit was supposed to be an hour. It ended up being almost 3 hours because they were crying just nonstop. And again, I was like, I wish I could do more. So what have I started doing after all of these situations? Very first thing when I first meet these participants, I remind them or inform them that I am not clinical staff. I have nothing to do with clinic. I am a researcher. I'm very interested in their well-being, but that's about all I can be. I can be interested and care about them and want to have that professional friendship with them, but I am going to tell the clinic when things arise. I'm going to talk to the clinic. I work with them, that they can tell me they would prefer me not to disclose things to the clinic, but that if it's safety related, I'm going to tell them. Every single time, if it's safety related and I'm at all concerned for their safety, I am going to tell the clinic. And then other resources, I've sought out resources. I've sought out pretty much every training I felt like I could possibly take to feel more comfortable in these situations and be prepared. And then I share them with everyone. These are things that we talk about a lot in our clinic, and we encourage all of our research coordinators in our group to take part in. So the first would be mental health first aid responder training. This is how to handle crises and resources and references and things, and how to support people in those situations. Safe zone training so that you can become, you learn those sensitivity trainings, you learn the terminologies that are appropriate, and it's just really helpful for me. It's been helpful in interacting with diverse groups of folks that I may not have interacted with in the past. Get to know your clinic social workers. They are godsend. They are magic. Familiarize yourself with your own crisis management plans, clinic or research specific, and if you don't have any, you can create your own. These are great things to have in your clinics. And then learn local disclosure laws and what you are responsible for or not responsible for reporting, and what and when you should reach out to clinic. So then I have a QR code if anybody would like to email me. I love to make professional friends, so let's reach out. And then there's a short plug. There will be a roundtable. It's today. Roundtable at 12:30. I don't remember the room number, but please come if you're interested in talking mental health for yourself or for your patients. Any questions?
Hi. Wonderful talk. Thank you so much. I just also wanted to emphasize some hard talks that I've been having as a coordinator. Right now we're doing a qualitative study understanding people's attitudes and experiences with nutrition. what would you guess? It's a lot different now. People are gaining a bunch of weight, or sometimes some are losing it. They're feeling really uncomfortable in their bodies, and I'm sitting there on the phone with them. There's no video, and they're talking about some really, really difficult times. So I took a screenshot of those. Thank you so much. These conversations happen in all sorts of facets of research, so thank you.
Of course.
So I have a question. Use the microphone. Sorry.
So where can we get the mental health first aid training? Great. So it is available online. You can look it up. A lot of institutions will offer it as well for staff. I know at UNC it's offered for free. It's sponsored by the university, intended for students and faculty and staff. So maybe your institution offers it. If not, I believe that there was, it offers some form of compensation, like grant funding type situations where they'll cover it. Same thing with the, I'm totally blanking, Safe Zone. So Safe Zone, you can sign up for free completely for a 2-hour training online.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
Of course.
So I don't have a question. I just wanted to commend you for realizing that you had a lack of knowledge and taking the initiative to help that for yourself and then sharing it with us. And I also wanted to remind everyone in the room, and I don't know why I'm getting choked up, but as somebody who has personal experience with a few of the topics, being on the patient side of things, I just want to remind you, nobody expects you to be perfect. We want you to have grace for who you're talking to, but also have grace with yourself and realize you might not know what to say in the moment, and that's okay.
Thank you.